Let's paint this sunflower together. Today we're working in gouache to create a soft, painterly look that comes together beautifully with just a few simple layers. I'll walk you through it step by step so you can follow along at your own pace. I've listed the supplies in the description below, and you don't need the exact colors I'm using. Just work with whatever you have. And I'll link the line drawing below if you'd like to trace it. I'm going to start with thinner layers at first, almost sort of like a watercolor consistency. And I'm just going to put this in. Now let's do a green. Coming from watercolor, you want to really add a lot of water to this paint, but that's not how it works. So there's a little bit of a learning curve. You do want your initial layers to be thinner, but as you build up, your paint will get thicker. So really learning water control is probably going to be the most important thing with gouache if you're coming from watercolor. Just painting some of the underneath petals. I almost feel like I want to use a flat brush with this, but I'll keep going with this to see. I'm just really kind of putting in some of the shadowed parts. Now, they won't end up being this bright. The first layers always look flat. That's totally normal. The depth comes as we layer. Yeah, so I'm finding this round brush painful. I'm going to switch to a flat brush. I just want to put some lights on too so I'll have an idea. And remember, gouache, lighter colors dry darker and darker colors dry a little bit lighter. And I know that's quite confusing. Especially if you're coming from watercolor because most colors just dull down and lighten. They don't get darker. Let's get some good paint going here. That's better. Much better. I find if you want to paint looser and not be so fussy, get rid of the small round brush, get rid of the round brush. Use a square brush. So the way to get a softer line is to keep going while your paint is still wet. If you want a distinct line, you have got to let that paint dry in between. I find this kind of almost like sort of mixing oil paint. It's different. Definitely takes a little bit getting used to. Not caring for the goopiness of the binder being separate. And I've actually read, I've never had it happen, that if you put gouache too thick on paper, that it has the possibility of cracking and falling off. So that is something you want to be aware of. Just a little bit of water here and there goes a long ways because it does start to dry out on the actual palette. And I'm just using a little ceramic plate I bought at the dollar store. Nothing fancy. Okay, just really trying to get some of those darks in where there's some really, add a little more paint. And remember, it's going to dry darker, so I'm kind of aiming for a lighter color than what I want. So we'll have to see. Might even help to have a little more water at first, and that would help cover the white. I don't want to jump into thick paint right away. I think I'll get myself into trouble doing that. That's really dark there. Okay, let's rinse our brush good and get the water out of it. Yeah, I'm purposely not waiting for my petals to dry. I just don't want a really separate look right now. I mean, some of it is drying. And you can see through the gouache. The gouache is not opaque if you add water to it. So you can see what's underneath. So the lighter the color, I would think the deeper or the thicker the paint would be because you want the light colors to cover. You know, I think I would have liked to have toned. I would have liked to have toned the paper first because I can see the white showing through and I don't like that. That's all right. Okay, we're slowly getting there. I'm not liking that at all. I'll probably cover that over with blue. In fact, I'm just going to take some of that green off by dabbing. All right, now we're going to let it dry. So I'm just kind of putting in where the little sprigs from the center. This is where our petal overlaps. I was originally going to let some of that light color shine through, but it's just a little too bright. So what I'll do is I'll mix up some more, maybe add a little bit of light. And if I work my brush too much, I'm going to actually end up making this color disappear because I'm just working it into the existing wet paint. So you have to be careful. So I'm just kind of laying some over top, really light hand. Okay, well that's drying. I'm going to move on to, you can see my paint on my palette's actually, the stuff I've mixed has dried. I'm just going to add a little bit. I want a lighter green. Now, I'm going to take in this brownish color. I like it, but it needs to be darker. Oh, try not to flood your palette with water. It needs to be darker, a little more yellow, almost kind of greenish. I'm just really putting that where things are the darkest. Underneath where petals overlap. I think what the problem is, there should be a petal there, but so I haven't painted a whole lot with gouache, but I really like it. I know I really want my approach to it to be a lot looser than maybe what typically I am with watercolor. Okay, let's see how that dries. Actually, some of it is dry. Yeah, that's not bad. We just want some dimension. All right, I'm going to actually start by putting lights in so I can kind of base the mid-tone values. I switched to a smaller flat brush just because I'm working on smaller details now, but I love this. This is one way if you really want to get looser, try some gouache. These are your highlights on your sunflower, and you want them to read as light but yellow. And this actually probably won't be our lightest highlight just because it is going to dry darker. Just trying to separate some of those petals though. I think too, once we get some of the lighter colors in, we'll start to see the flower take shape. I'm not 100% sold on the separating look of it yet, but we'll see. Okay, so as it's drying, you can see it's a little lighter, but not a whole lot. So let's try to make it a little darker around it maybe, and that'll help it look lighter. So let's add the nice yellow parts. I think the color change is too sudden into the other color, so it's not blending. So we're just going to add a little bit of blending color. Okay, I can see it. It's starting to come. Just dull that down a little. We don't want it to be quite as bright. All right, let's lighten that up a little, add some cooler to it. It's really kind of just a balancing act. You've got to just kind of work back and forth, I find. And I don't want the petals to be, so distinct that it looks realistic. I mean, I'd like it to look like a sunflower, but... Okay, so this is the stage we're at, and we are going to let that dry. Yeah, the hardest part about the watercolor is dipping your brush into the water and just pulling it straight to your palette. That's too much water for gouache if you're in this stage. So that is definitely a challenge. I need to cool that down some. Okay, that's better. So this will dry probably more of a mid-tone, which that's exactly what we're looking for. All right, I'm going to let that dry. All right, I need a nice orange now to kind of, I find, level out a little of our warm, ooh, baby. Okay, I want that a little duller, a little lighter. Ooh, okay, so that really takes over, doesn't it? That is a nice color, but I think, well, you know what? It's gonna dry darker. So let's just kind of put some of this orange in and just see how it does, because these are more sort of like a dulled down orange here. I hear trouble. This kind of has some orange here too. Oh, I think that's actually making a huge difference. Okay, let's keep going with that for a bit. Yeah, I'm liking that much better. And I'm not, yeah, you know what? There is something missing here. There you go. Let's add a little orange. Okay. We're going to keep moving. This petal is a little deformed, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm liking this much better, and I'm finding it's looking a little more painterly, because some of the shadows would look a little orangey because it is such a bright yellow. Okay, I'm liking that. So far, so good. I'm going to go back and I'm going to mix up some more of this cooler yellow. I got both cats doing something. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe I'll incorporate a little bit of that orange just to dull it down some. Yeah, that's better. I had a couple areas a little too light, I think, to start off with. Now I'm just kind of roughing up some of that orange. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the cats are doing. The second I start to video, they seem to go crazy. And I think Charlie is the ringleader because Mama's not paying attention to him. So I'm doing a little bit of dry brushing where I'm actually not putting a huge amount of paint on. I'm kind of just skimming over the orange to kind of blend it in, and then I'll go back in with the lights. Oh, I want to grab some of this. A little bit of dark there, a little bit of orange. Same with right here. All right, I'm going to dry that. I was kind of losing the shape of my center, so I'm just going over with some dark. And this little petal, this little fella right here, a little bit of reflective light there, just a smidge. I'll tell you a little secret. Right now it's kind of hard to judge how light these really are because they're sitting on white. So the best way to really lighten something if you're having a hard time is to paint something darker around it. Get another plate and we're going to mix up a nice blue for the background. First though, I am going to get rid of this that is driving me nuts. A little more water. The nice thing about this too is if you've kind of misshapen some of your leaves or some of your petals, you can negatively fill them back in. Yeah, I really like gouache. Now we'll see too if this all dries nice and uniform. It's supposed to. Like a nice flat mat. And I can feel my paint getting thicker on my palette. Okay, and this is where hopefully, now that it's a little thicker, I can get right over top of this green. We're gonna try. And I'm not moving my brush a lot. I'm just trying to deposit paint on top of it. And I'm reloading a lot. Okay, I'm going to have to probably add some water to this because it's getting pretty dry. Okay, we're on the home stretch. Okay, I see a few white areas. Just gonna go over those. Probably my paint might have been a little too thick. All right, so I'm going to dry that and see where we're at. Right now, I'm going to try and get some nice highlights and some darks. A little of the warm yellow to the white. Okay, let's try this. It takes quite a bit of white to lighten. Just really try to differentiate some of these overlapping petals as oh yeah, you can see it's already starting to dry darker, but I think it's a much better light tone than we had before. I'm gonna try just some white with a hint of yellow. I'm gonna jump back to this palette. Oh yeah, it's still a little wet underneath. Oh yeah, it just kind of skimmed over. Just trying to get rid of the little white dots in between there. I'm going to dry that. Okay, so the biggest thing I see once it's dry is we've lost a lot of this really nice yellow. I'm just going to put some of that back in. I'm going to dry that.
Thanks so much for painting with me today. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give the video a like. It really helps my channel. And if you'd like more relaxing, step-by-step watercolor and gouache projects, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.